And we should maybe briefly mention Marco Polo that you've talked about. So he is this now famous explorer that traversed the continent, the Silk Road, and then stayed with Kublai Khan for a while. And I guess one is one of the primary documenters of everything that's been going on. Is there something else interesting to say about Marco Polo and about his interaction with Kublai Khan?
I like Marco Polo.
Okay.
I use his work a lot.
Yeah.
I find him very reliable. In the areas where he's not reliable, you can kind of tell because he wasn't there. But the places he was, he reported a lot of stuff. And so I'm very much indebted to him for a lot of things, because with something like the Princess Hukjin and also another fighting princess from Central Asia named Hutulung, he wrote about that, but I also needed other sources. So if I could find Chinese sources or Arab sources or something else or Persian to support it, then I really felt a lot of confidence with him over time. But pieces were romanticized, and you have to always discount it, but it's very good. However, I believe the best work written about Marco Polo, aside from his own book, which was actually written by Rustichello, dictated in prison in Genoa, in the 20th century, Eugene O'Neill wrote a play that became a comedy on Broadway called Marco Millions. That was both a play on what he was called, El Milione, the million one, because he had talked about cities of millions of people and about money in the millions and things that people in Europe just couldn't believe could happen. He then published his whole play as a book to show people what he really meant. And it was an ironic look at capitalism, because this is 20th century already, versus the idea of like a philosopher king, which he saw in Kublai Khan. And so Marco Polo becomes a symbol of capitalism, not at its worst, but at its most basic. And that is like the princess in the story. This is not in real life, but this is in the play written by Eugene O'Neill. But I think it captures a lot. The Princess Hukjin says, Marco is an excellent judge of quantity. And there were things like that. And then in the play, Bayan, the great general, he talks with Kublai Khan, and he said, look, these people are dangerous from the West. We should go conquer them now while we can. Kublai Khan tells Bayan, again in the play, this is fiction, but he tells Bayan, they are not worth conquering. And if we conquer them, we will become like them. And he said, Marco Polo has been in our land. He has seen everything. He has learned nothing. He has seen everything. He understands nothing. For me, this was such an important moment in the history of the world, symbolically, with Marco Polo and Kublai Khan, the coming together of two worlds. It could have gone a different way. It could have gone a different way. And it's not that I'm anti-capitalist, I'm pro-capitalist, but the way so many things worked out, it was a misstep in history. Maybe we took the wrong step at that moment, and we could have learned more from cooperation.
They didn't quite integrate successfully.
No. But today, we've returned to that, I think. The East and the West are confronting each other again on more equal terms. For a long time, the West was so dominant and the East was so downtrodden by colonialism and other things, and internal rot and other things. But today, there's not necessarily equality, but there's more of a balance. And which way will we go?
And again, there's a lot of room and a lot of energy for division, for misunderstanding, versus integration. Like
Yes.
the East is demonized in the West, and one of the great regrets I have that I hope to alleviate is just how little I understand China in the East.
Yes.
It's just sort of not just from kind of economics, politics, reading a few books, but like the way you've understood and felt the Mongolian steppe, like understand the Chinese people in that way, because it does feel like from that understanding, there could be integration
Yeah.
of ideas.
My work is often classified as Chinese history, which I think is ironic because for me, it's always a Mongolian history. But for the last book I wrote, which dealt a lot more with China because it was about Kublai Khan, then in that book, I deliberately did not go to China. I'd been there numerous times before. I deliberately did not. I'm an outsider. I do not speak Chinese. I'm not a Chinese scholar. I never even had a course in Chinese art or calligraphy or anything. And I wanted to be very clear. Mine is an outside perspective. But I think it's possible as an outsider to still have respect for that culture, even if I disagree that they point this one as a hero and that one as the villain. I disagree, and they'll say, oh, I'm wrong. I don't understand their history, and they're probably right. That's quite possible. But there's an outside view that is different and tries to be respectful of what happens in that part of the world. Just as I'm respectful towards Genghis Khan and the Mongol Empire, I respect China very much. I'm an American. I love the ideals of my country. I love so many aspects of our culture, and there are many aspects I don't, of course, because it's impossible to love everything, even about the members of your own family. And
Yeah.
I do hope that through understanding one another, or just making the effort to understand, even if we understand wrongly and we're incorrect in it, just to make the effort to understand will help us a lot. And the West has had a long couple of centuries of extreme arrogance that they are there to teach the world. And I am sometimes dismayed. I meet these young people all over the world who've come to help. They're an NGO and they're going to teach the people how to take care of the environment. They're going to teach the women how to exercise their rights. They're going to bring in microfinancing to help liberate people. We are arrogant beyond words. And we need to be a little bit more humble and try to put ourselves on an equal basis with some of these people, not a superior basis.